So, folks, welcome to our December 1st meeting of the Royal Astronomical Society, Ottawa Centre. I'm Dave Chisholm, and I'm the president of the Ottawa Centre, interim meeting chair for the last month. We'll be handing that off to Mick starting in January. I'm very much looking forward to that. Yes, too big a smile. But we'll have lots of smiles from Mick too as he gets things started here. So just a couple of things. Welcome to those on Zoom as well. So we're going to start tonight with the AGM, and that will take about 30, 40 minutes, roughly thereabouts. Then we'll move into other content. We are recording this webinar. If folks online, if you have questions, please use the Q&A box on your screen there. We do not monitor the chat box. Folks in the audience here, please put your hand up. Chris has a wireless microphone that he'll hand around so the folks online can hear what you're saying. Oh, sorry, just a little bit of a delay there. So the RASC Ottawa Centre acknowledges the trust placed in us by our First Nations with their ancestral lands and sky. So here is tonight's program. We have the AGM, we have the Ottawa Skies. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. Those of you who brought things for the swap table at break time, you can set those up on the table so folks can look at them. The swap time is going to occur at the end of the meeting. We are not going to have a door prize tonight. However, anything on this table here is free for anybody. Please take it. But there are no door prizes tonight. I have a bunch at home from our last meeting. After the break, Jim Thompson will talk about his mini refractor. We have observation reports, monthly observation challenges, and we have some members in the news announcements as well. So welcome to our AGM. So in order to vote here tonight, we welcome visitors who are with us here tonight. If you're a visitor, just please keep your hand down. We're voting, and similarly online, please respect that. So what we're going to be doing right now, we need a quorum. And what is a quorum, Chris? Yeah, we've got at least 25 here. Chris is going to do a poll and see how many are online. We just want to get a count of how many members are here at the meeting. So just give us a second here. The numbers are coming in. Can you see it on the screen there? Oh, yes. Okay, good.
We've already got over 20 people.
Yeah, we'll just let this run just so we've got a total count here. Maybe just a show of hands again, and we'll just see how many we've got here. I count about 35. Okay. And we have 25 online. Okay, we'll end the poll then. Thank you. That says share results on my screen here. I don't know. Maybe you have to run up to your Mac and close it. Okay. Okay, Chris is going to work from up top there. He's got to close his screen there. Yeah, guys up in the sound booth, can you dim the lights a little bit, please? Just so we can see the screen a little bit better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, thank you. So Chris is just going up there to close this screen because we can't seem to do it from down here. There we go. And okay. I don't think I skipped a slide there. So here's the agenda for tonight. And we'll just keep on moving. So for the adoption of the agenda, Get somebody to approve that. Simon? Seconded by Oscar. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So the minutes of last year's meeting were sent out. Sorry? Okay. I have to run the poll, okay? Just a sec. Okay, so hang on a second here.
Can I go to the next poll first? Okay, super. Okay. I'll let you drive.
Sorry, folks, this is our first blended AGM. Always a few little hiccups.
Test.
Okay, so I can hear Oscar can talk to us too. That's great. So minutes of last year's meeting. And I'm not moving. Oh, agenda, okay. Everybody here in favor of the agenda? Anybody don't like the agenda? No, we're good on here. And we got 100% online, so that's great. So we'll end that poll. Okay, then minutes of last year's meeting. And my clicker's not working. There. Motion to approve the minutes. So the minutes were distributed as part of the announcement for this meeting. Were there any corrections to the minutes? So somebody to move. Okay, we got that. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried on in here. We'll go do another poll.
Good.
21 out of 21. Thank you. Okay. So I'm just going to read you my president's report here, and we'll take it from there. So it's been my pleasure to serve you as president during 2023. It was a challenging year on a number of fronts, but we're coming out in 2023 in great shape with much enthusiasm going into 2024. One of our priorities during this last year was to get our in-person meetings restarted after COVID shut us down. We finally had our first in-person blended meeting on November the 3rd. There are some very intense negotiations between RASC Ottawa Centre and the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum for us to return to their space. Thank you to Stephen Norris and Chris Tarrant for their assistance with this. Things have changed significantly with the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum and all other museums under the Ingenium umbrella in terms of their mandate, usage, and staffing. We are one of the first organizations to be welcomed back to use their space. It was important that we did this in partnership with them, as the cost to simply rent their space as an outside group would have been unsustainable for us, approximately $19,000 a year. So we really appreciate our partnership with the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum. It is our intention to have our meetings in blended format, in person and Zoom moving forward. How many do we have online, Chris, today? I think we had about 50 registered. I'm not sure how many. So we have 33 in person, 33 people that can help us with the AGM. That's great. We did look at other venues while we were negotiating, but the cost, internet access, and availability was a challenge. Thanks to the efforts of Katie Francis, we were able to have 2 successful star parties at the Diefenbunker and Carp. We had many more scheduled, but they're wiped out by cloudy skies. Gotta love living in Ottawa. Let's hope for better weather in 2024. The Fred Lawson Observatory continues to be enhanced, making it a really valuable asset for our community. Thank you to Rick Scholes and a myriad of volunteers for their continued support in keeping this facility running smoothly. We continued our outreach efforts to scouts, guides, libraries, and the general public. There are already 5 events, not counting star parties, scheduled for 2024. Thank you to Acer Alguindi for his support as our outreach coordinator. Apart from my keen interest in astronomy, the main reason I keep active in the RASC is the people. We have some amazing people in our center who are willing to volunteer their knowledge in so many ways. At this time of year, I'm pleased to recognize one of these volunteers for his ongoing support of the RASC Ottawa Centre. I met this person early on when I joined the RASC Ottawa Centre, and he's been supportive in so many ways in sharing his knowledge and his technical expertise. When he takes on a task, he doesn't quit until it's done properly. I experienced this last year when he, with some others, were working on a particularly challenging issue with one of the telescopes at Flow. He willingly shares his expertise in astrophotography and regularly shares his images with the rest of us. I'm pleased to announce that Paul Cloninger will be receiving the RASC Ottawa Centre's President's Award this evening. We'll do that during the awards section there, Paul. So Paul is here in person, which is great. 2024 will be a busy year, with the highlight being the total solar eclipse within easy driving distance on April the 8th. Most of us will be heading to Kingston and the Seaway to experience this in person. We'll also be working with the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum on a number of joint events throughout the year as part of our ongoing partnership with them. There'll be a partial lunar eclipse, just a little nibble out of the moon, on September the 17th. As I conclude this report, I'd like to recognize the RASC Ottawa Centre members who've passed away in 2023. We remember Jeffrey Cohill, Gerald Gruber, Lafith Massoud, and Alan Reddock. We also lost a key leader in the Canadian astronomy community, Terence Dickinson, in this past year. Clear skies. Thank you. So I'm going to call upon our treasurer to take us through the treasurer's report. That's the big button to advance.
Okay, and now the part you've all come for this evening, the money. So first of all, we have the report from the auditor on last year's financial statements. He's gone through them just this last week and reported that everything is in order. They're all good. So that's a relief. It was my first year as treasurer, so I'm glad to hear that I'm still working all right on that. Thank you, Paul, for taking on that task. For this year, the 2022-23 fiscal year, which I'm just calling the 2023 fiscal year, even though it started in October 22, we see that the membership revenue is a little bit down. We didn't have quite as many renewals as we were hoping for. It may be because of COVID. It may be because we didn't have as many public outreach sessions as we normally do, cloudy weather, or it may have been the problems at the national office and the cancellation of the Sky News. But I think most of those problems have been resolved now. We won't be getting Sky News back, but there is a website that you've heard about that is trying to pick up some of the slack on that. As far as the other income, we had an unusual influx of income from the coffee fund when Art Fraser resigned from that position. He'd been keeping the money for building it up over the last few years, and then he submitted it all at once. So we had a big influx from the coffee fund. We didn't have such a large number of donations this year because there was one in 2022 for FLO that was exceptionally large. And then similarly, in the other income, last year we had a particularly large amount coming in from an unexpected insurance rebate. We got money back from the insurance company. Whoa. Doesn't happen every year, so it didn't happen this year. So our income, it was down substantially from last year, but it's still on par with what we were expecting, about 13,600. For the expenses, the operating expenses were a little bit larger than usual. And again, we had some unusual things happening this year. For one thing, we did sell one of our large surplus telescopes, but we sold it at a loss from what it was on our books. So that was about $2,500 on the expense side. We did resume star parties and other outreach, so that was more expense than we had back in 2022 when we were doing practically nothing. And FLO had an expensive year with higher than usual snow removal expenses, telescope maintenance, insurance, mosquito repellent. We bought a lot of extra mosquito repellent. So the net result is that we did have a net loss this year. Without the depreciation, it comes to about $1,000, so not a terrifically large amount. The equipment does keep depreciating, so it is put in as an expense, and you'll notice that the value of our equipment drops every year. So here it is, our total assets have decreased somewhat this year due to depreciation and the selling at a loss of this piece of equipment. But we are still in very good shape in terms of monetary assets. We have lots of money in the bank. We have a lot of capital equipment. It's always very difficult to say how much is it worth. We're saying about $20,000, but in fact, could we sell it for that much? Maybe not. On the other hand, we also have equipment that has reached the end of its depreciation, so it's listed as a zero value, but we could possibly get money for it. So the equipment value is very uncertain. You may have noticed for the last few years, we've had a special project, a COVID subsidy. We were given some money. We transferred some money into this fund for subsidizing membership fees of people who were in financial difficulty due to COVID. We only had one request for that. And since we don't seem to be getting any more requests, I have proposed that we retire this special fund, but I think the council could be open to the suggestion of, if anybody is having financial difficulties, please ask. We are a public organization. We want to reach out to people. We want to encourage people to become members and to get interested in astronomy. If money's in the way, please come and talk to us. We would be quite happy to provide subsidy. So I won't be reporting in future anymore about this special project. It will just be an ongoing thing that if there's anybody who has financial difficulty joining our organization, please ask. So in the bottom line, we are still quite financially viable. We have quite a lot of money in the bank. We have a lot of lovely equipment, and we seem to be on a good path to success in the future. Thank you very much, Dave and Chris and Stephen, for negotiating the agreement with the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum. I was a little bit worried about, the possible costs of holding live meetings again if we had to pay for a venue. But we have this lovely arrangement here where they're charging us a very minimal amount, and certainly very sustainable for the future. We do have to be careful that we don't have ongoing membership service costs that are greater than our membership income. But I think now we are in fairly good shape as far as that goes. On the other hand, we have a lot of lovely equipment that's not all being used right now. We have money in the bank. What we would really like to see is more people volunteering to get it in use. If you've got any ideas of some astronomy project, something you'd like to see happening, ask, volunteer, say, I will do it. I'd love to have a big telescope in use. We've got it. Use it. It's wonderful. We have a lovely facility out at FLO, and it is seeing quite a bit of use on the members' star parties and so on. I'd like to see more of that happening. We have the resources. Let's get them used. Come out and enjoy these telescopes. Enjoy the night sky. We've got the resources. Let's use them. And talking about volunteers, I would like to say that my main interest is astrophotography, not bookkeeping. I volunteered to be the treasurer again for another year, but I wouldn't mind if somebody was to volunteer to come and help out with it. And if you'd like to gradually ease into the role of becoming treasurer, I'd be happy to hand it on. I'm very happy to train anybody in what I've been doing. I've been taking notes about how I do everything, and I think I can hand it on to somebody else with confidence. So if you have any inclination at all to help out the organization by becoming treasurer, please talk to me or any member of the executive, and we'll work something out. Any questions? Yes.
For the COVID subsidy, are those 2023 numbers or total?
I'm sorry, try it again.
For the previous slide, the COVID subsidy.
That's all we've seen.
Okay.
Just one $25 out.
Any other questions? If there's any questions online, please type it in the Q&A box. I don't see anything there, so thank you. If you guys can mute the.
If anybody would like to see a more detailed statement, the one that I presented to council, I have it on paper with me, so you're free to talk to me at the break or any other time, and I can show you any more detail if you're interested. Okay, so I would like a motion to approve these financial statements for 2023.
Just call out your name. Steve. Steve who? Steve Black. Seconder. I'll call for approval.
Okay.
So all those
Yep,
in
yep.
favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay.
And we're carried online.
And we have one more. Paul Sadler has agreed to serve as our auditor again. Motion to appoint. I'll move to appoint him. Seconder. And vote. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to the election of officers, councillors. meeting chair and national council reps. The nominations for these positions have been closed. And so thank you to the nominating committee led by former President Stephen Norse. And here are the people's names that were collected, and they've been acclaimed. But we still have an open position for national council rep. If that is something that interests you, please speak to myself or any member of council, and we'd be happy to discuss that further. So congratulations. These are the proposed appointed positions. These positions are appointed by council. If somebody's really keen on working with these people, please speak to us. But these are the names as they stand tonight. So we're going to move on to the awards for 2023. So we have to remember the RASC values: sharing knowledge and experience, collaboration and fellowship, enrichment of our community through diversity, and discovery through a scientific method. So we have the Paul Commission Observer of the Year Award. It's awarded annually to the member who's contributed most to the advancement of astronomy in the group. The purpose of this award is to stimulate a keener interest in the observational astronomy among members of the group. In keeping with this purpose, the selection is based primarily on actual observations and their value to astronomy and to our group as observers. Of course, construction of a useful piece of apparatus is also a valuable contribution, but the emphasis should be on the use of such an apparatus to obtain the results of scientific value. That's from 1967. If it's not written down, then it never happened. So what's the point? Just like Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescope and Spitzer, we do science and we do pretty pictures too. So how do we interpret the intent of this award? Is to recognize good practice that promotes good science and promotes public engagement. Got to proceed by examples, else others can't learn them. And congratulations to Andrea. Come on down. So there's your award. Thank you. You got the remote? Okay, good. Thank you. Chris is going to drive. Okay, so we've got the Rolf Meyer Award for planetary observing. And this award goes to Andrea. So congratulations. You've only got two hands, so. Okay, for the best presentation of the year, let me grab the plaque. So this award is decided by the meeting chair, and I was interim meeting chair last year. So I'm pleased to announce that Simon Hamner for Venus, the New Planetary Eldorado, was the best presentation of the year. Okay, I'm going to call Gordon up here to present the award for Best Astronauts Article of the Year. And I think he kept his plaque.
Kept his plaque. Okay, we'll ad lib this. Good evening. So some years when I do this, it's obvious who the award should go to. And then there are years like this year where there's so many great articles that it's really, really difficult to choose. And that's a good thing, because that means we're getting lots of really interesting stuff in astronauts. So, I mean, this year there were things like Andrea's article on clouds on Mars, or Bob Olson's article on spectroscopy. Tim Cole's article on the sun in multiple wavelengths. And there was Richard Taylor's article on plate solving. I also thought about all the work that my assistant editor, Doug Fleming's been doing on the membership profile or member profiles. And so it wasn't an easy decision, but after a lot of humming and hawing, Richard for plate solving. And Richard's plaque was awarded to him at the dinner, and he didn't bring it with him tonight, so there we go.
But come on up, Richard.
You can
just
come
so I
up.
recognize
Come on.
you. There you go.
Okay.
Smiling face on Zoom from Douglas Fleming here. Okay, so it gives me great pleasure to present the service award to one of our individuals that has worked very hard over the last number of years to take our telescope loan library and bring it into the 21st century. And so I'm pleased to the 2023 Service Award is presented to Peter Shute. I don't know whether he's here tonight. No, but congratulations, Peter. We will get the plaque to you. Okay, so this will be a surprise to him. We'll reach out to him. Does somebody here live near him and could deliver the plaque to him? No. Okay, we'll arrange to get it to him. And then finally, the President's Award. I already talked about that, and I'm really pleased to present Paul Cloninger with the President's Award for his amazing efforts over the years. So all the folks with their plaques here, I have your covers for them, so you can get them home safely without scratches, and I'll put them on the table here. Okay. Is there any other business that we need to talk about this evening? I see about 50 hands up. No. I think you want to move on with the rest of the meeting. So thank you very much. I need somebody to move adjournment. Oh, okay. Mick? A seconder? Simon? All those in favor? Opposed? Nobody wants the meeting to keep on going. That's good. We're going to do the online poll again as well. So I'll give this a second here. 20, oh, we got a few more people online now. 100%. There we go. So we're going to move on. Okay, so it has been passed then. So welcome to our new members, and sorry, some of your name, one of the names has been hidden there by my image, but welcome. We had 91 new members in 2023. If you're a new member, maybe I'll just get you to lift your hand so we can congratulate you. So thank you very much. Hopefully you will get a lot out of the RASC. So we've got some members in the news announcements here for this evening. First of all, I'm sorry to say that Alan Reddock, who was a member of the RASC for many years, passed away on October 10th of this year. He was in the club before I was a member, but we got a number of recollections from some of the other members. So we pause and give thanks for him. Congratulations to Andrea, whose image of the annular eclipse appeared in the front cover of the journal. Congratulations, Andrea. For those of you who are visiting with us here tonight and would like to know, well, how do I join the RASC? Well, the regular membership is $103. The family membership is $97.50 plus $16.90 per adult, $9.20 per youth. And if you're under 21 or under 25 and still a student, cost is $62.40 per year. So what do you get for your membership? My clicker is not working. There we go, membership benefits. So locally, we have the Ted Bean Loan Library. Say that quickly a number of times. Peter Shute is our librarian. We have an excellent selection of telescopes that you're welcome to borrow. You probably heard a number of folks talk about FLO. That's a Fred Lossing Observatory. It's out near Almont. This is a private observatory on the property of the Mill of Kintail, a conservation area. Excellent resource there, and we encourage you to come out to our private star parties. And now that we're back in the museum, the Stan Mott Library is open, and Estelle is our librarian. And after the end of the meeting, the library's behind the curtains back here. You're welcome to come back and see what books we have available. Nationally, you will get the journal electronically, although you can, for a little bit more, get a hard copy. You'll get your Observer's Handbook. I think everybody here has pretty well got their Observer's Handbook now. I got mine a few weeks ago. Excellent resource. We also have our awesome monthly Astronotes. Gordon Webster is our editor for that. And your next edition of that will be coming out shortly after this meeting. I didn't want him to release the Astronotes because my president's report's in there and I didn't want to spoil the surprise for Paul. So anyways, that will be coming out shortly. But the main membership benefit are the people. And so hopefully I encourage you to stay actively involved with the group. Any questions, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. So let's take a look at the Ottawa skies, and I just got to grab my notes here. So here are the moon phases for the month. December the 12th is the new moon. December the 27th is the full moon, and the full moon was known by local Indigenous peoples as the cold moon, and it's also been known as the long night's moon and the moon before Yule. We have the Geminids meteor shower on the 13th to the 14th. It's can produce up to 120 per hour, so it's one of the bigger ones. Perseids and the Geminids are the two big meteor showers. And it peaks this year on the night of the 13th and 14th. It should be a great year because it's a nearly new moon at that time. So hopefully, as long as we don't have cloudy skies, it'd be a great thing to observe. We have the Perseids meteor shower, which is a relatively minor meteor shower, about 5 to 10 meteors per hour, December 21st and 22nd. The waxing gibbous moon will block out most of the meteors this year. And even though we're not into January, our next meeting occurs after this, so we have the Quantrins meteor shower on January 3 and 4, and it's again at one of the minor meteor showers. In terms of the sunrise and sunset, we're moving towards the shortest day of the year on the 21st, and by the end of the month, things will start to lighten up. Mercury on December the 4th. It's 3 days from now, greatest eastern elongation. So that's where Mercury is furthest away from the sun, just after sunset. So look up in the sky then. Venus is visible before sunrise. Mars is not visible. It's rising and setting with the sun this month. Jupiter is visible in the evening, as is Saturn. Uranus is visible in the evening through the night, and Neptune is visible in the evening. This is a rather bit of an eye chart, but this will be an Astronotes. I always like to look ahead to 2024 and see, okay, when are all the planets going to be up in the sky? This is the planet visibility for 2024, so that will be coming out in Astronotes. And there is our cartoon of the month. I guess next year it'll be 366 days because of the leap year. So we're going to take a 10-minute bio break. So please come back at 21 minutes after. And just a reminder, the rest of the museum is closed. Those of you who have swap table things, this would be a good time to set them up. Here's our trivia question for over the break. There are many theories about the birth of our solar system. Which theory involves a passing star pulling dust and debris from the forming sun? Is it the protoplanet hypothesis, nebular hypothesis, tidal theory, or collision theory? So think about your answers. We'll give you the answer in 10 minutes. See you then. Okay, I'll just get everybody back in their seats, and then we'll turn the lights down, and we will resume the meeting. So, any guesses as to what the correct answer is? I hear C. Is that the general consensus? You are correct. Okay, the tidal theory or Chamberlain-Moulton theory suggests that a passing star pulled dust and debris from the forming sun, leaving a string of debris that eventually formed the planets. So I'm pleased to turn it over now to Jim Thompson, who's going to be talking to us about a mini refractor plus a mini mount is mega fun. So here you go. There's your advance.
Well, you can tell the years have gone by because I need glasses now to read. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight, I will be talking to you about my recent experience with a new astronomy setup consisting of a mini refractor paired with a mini mount. The results so far have been mega fun, as I will explain over the next 20 minutes. Wondering if we can lower the lights a little bit, just so that the screen is easier to see. Chris, the presenter view is what's being transmitted on Zoom, FYI. Now, this is not the first time that I've talked about mini refractors. I gave a presentation dedicated to them back in January 2022. I also presented some of my observing results using a mini refractor in my talk from last December. Suffice to say, I very much like mini refractors. The reason for which is simply put, they're awesome. The mini refractors that are available commercially today are relatively inexpensive and have high quality optics. Their short focal lengths provide very wide fields of view. They are small and lightweight, making them great for portable setups. For example, on the beach at my cottage, as I discussed in my talk last December. The two scopes shown here are the particular units that I own. The 50mm aperture ASCAR FMA 230 and the 40mm aperture TPO ultra wide, which is in fact a rebranded ASCAR scope called the FMA 180. Remember I said that I like portability when setting up at my cottage? Well, this image explains why. This image was taken in early May of this year. I was in hip waders at the time with water up to my mid-thigh. My usual location for setting up on the beach is about 20 feet to the left in this image, where the water was over my head. Needless to say, water levels along the Ottawa River vary dramatically over the course of the year. So using a portable setup is rather important. So I believe at this point, we've firmly established that mini refractors are awesome, yes? The question now is whether or not there exists an equally awesome mount that can be paired with the mini refractor. The requirements for that mount are that it's compact and lightweight, provides good tracking and is easy to use, and is relatively inexpensive. The desire to have a mount that is compact and lightweight goes to the need for portability, not just for my use at the cottage, but also for a very important event that is fast approaching. On April 8th next year, there will be a total solar eclipse on the North American continent. Much of the promotional material that you will see online for the event calls it the Great American Eclipse, which can mean different things depending on what side of the 49th parallel you live. My plan for this event is the same as what I did for the 2017 eclipse, which is to make a vacation of taking my family to somewhere along the path of totality. The question then is, where should we go? The least effort would be to simply drive about an hour down to the St. Lawrence Seaway and watch the eclipse from there. A park in Prescott or Brockville would be easy enough to get to. Alternatively, I could make more of a vacation out of the event and head somewhere in the mid-US, a 1 or 2 day drive away. We could sightsee along the route and make a trip out of it. Finally, we could choose to go all the way to Texas, where a lot of the attention seems to be focused from eclipse hunters. That would mean airfare for the 4 of us, which would be around $6,000, plus accommodations and a rental vehicle. The path of totality passes through many major North American cities, as you can see on this map. So there are numerous viable candidates for places to go. At the end of the day, though, I think the decision needs to be based on one thing: clouds. This map was produced by Jay Anderson, a Canadian meteorologist and avid eclipse chaser who, for over 40 years, has been publishing studies of the climate along eclipse tracks to help people plan where best to be located when an eclipse is passing by. Based on the available climatic data, the most probable cloud cover extent for the area along the St. Lawrence Seaway is around 60 to 70%. Not great. The same is true for the mid-US as well. Traveling as far as Texas improves the chances of clear sky, reducing the mean cloud coverage to the 40 to 50% range. Also, not the best. But wait, if we look all the way down into the lower left, we see along the Pacific coast where the eclipse first touches land, cloud fractions as low as 10%. Hello. And look, right there in the middle of the path, right on the coast, what's that city that I see? Why, it's the coastal resort city, Mazatlan. Now that seems like a good place to have an eclipse watching vacation. So, as of today, our accommodations and airfare to Mazatlan has been booked. All that is left is to pack. It turned out that air travel to Mazatlan from Ottawa is rather complicated, involving switching airlines along the way. This makes the desire for a portable mount solution even more important. Also, Mazatlan is located at 23 degrees north latitude, quite a long way south of where we are here in Ottawa. This means I may also have an opportunity to observe some southern sky objects while I am there. With this in mind, a mount that is easy to set up and use in the dark will be a benefit. And go-to capability would be super useful in such an unfamiliar sky. After researching online, I found that there were not a lot of choices of mounts meeting my requirements. The smallest and simplest mounts fall into the category called star trackers. Displayed here are the three main choices available today for star trackers. Starting on the left, the Polari by Vixen Optics, the Star Adventurer by Skywatcher in the middle, and the Skyguider Pro by Ioptron. These mounts all weigh in the 2-pound range and cost around $400 US. They are purely right ascension drives, tracking the sky only in one axis. To point your camera at different objects in the sky, you need to place a ball head mount on the top of the tracker and frame your scene manually. These mounts come with a limited number of tracking speeds, normally solar, sidereal, and some fraction of sidereal. They don't have fast tracking rates to allow you to slew in right ascension to help you to frame your image. These mounts also have little or no remote control ability, most being controlled exclusively by the buttons on the exterior of the mount. To be honest, I was not too keen on the available choices, and I began wondering if what it was I was trying to achieve could not be achieved with an inexpensive mount. Then I'd have to look for something much more expensive. And then I came across the Ioptron Skyhunter. The Skyhunter is a little heavier than the other sky trackers at just under 3 pounds, but it has axis motorized in both axes, so it will do go-tos. It can be configured in Alt-Az or equatorial modes, can be controlled by the buttons on the outside or via Wi-Fi using your phone or a tablet. It can also be used with an optional hand controller with pre-programmed database of night sky objects. The mount can handle a payload of around 11 pounds, which is ample for my planned setup on eclipse day. I tried various refractors on it and was able to get a scope up to 66 millimeters aperture balanced using the stock counterweight. The package I ended up buying cost $488 US and came with the mount, counterweight bar and weight for EQ mode, and a tripod. These are a few photos of my new portable mount setup. I added to my package the EQ base accessory, which allows for fine adjustment of the mount altitude and azimuth when you're trying to do your polar alignment. I also went for the optional hand controller, even though it was an extra $275 US. My mobile phone was too old for the Ioptron app to work, so my choices for remote control were either to buy the hand controller or buy a new phone, so I chose the controller. From local vendors, I purchased a standard USB-C charger, which is what you use to power it or to recharge the battery that's inside. And I also bought a ball head mount to give me the most flexibility on how I wanted to use the mount. I reused the dense form cut foam insert from the packaging that came with the mount with an old case that I had to make up a nice slick little carrying case, which is what you see here. The tripod, despite having some parts in its construction made of plastic, was quite solid. It also came with a built-in pier extension, which you can see in the tripod lying there on the sand. So there was no issue with the refractors that I was using hitting the legs of the tripod. I brought this kit with me tonight. It's over there by the chairs. If you want to have a look at it after we're finished, I'm more than happy to show it off to you. As I mentioned, the Skyhunter can be used in two configurations, Alt-Az mode and EQ mode. Those two configurations are shown here. You'll notice the water levels are quite a bit lower at this time. I've played a bit with both of the configurations, and the EQ mode provides much better tracking, but takes significantly longer to set up. It is also the heaviest setup, since you need to use the EQ base, counterweight bar, and weight together with the mount itself. The Alt-Az mode was much easier, almost trivial to set up, and is significantly lighter. I was not totally satisfied with the Alt-Az tracking for my application of a mirrorless camera with a 240mm focal length lens, but perhaps I need to play with it a bit more to see if I can do better. My first light with the mount was at my cottage on the night of August 31st. This photo here shows you my setup for a night of electronically assisted astronomy. Some key components of my setup include a patio umbrella to keep dew from forming on me and my computer, and a frosty beverage to keep me company. On this particular evening, though, the wobbly pop wasn't my only companion. The laptop in the lower right of this image was connected to a Zoom session through which I shared my views of the night sky with my friends Simon Hanmer and Lance McIntosh, who were also doing EAA at the time, but from their respective locations across Eastern Ontario. A modern miracle made possible by the recent installation of Bell Fibe at our cottage. The next few slides provide some example screen captures of the views I was able to produce using my new mini setup. All of these images are live stacks of 30 20-second sub-exposures for a total exposure time of 10 minutes each. The camera was a ZWO ASI 533 MC Pro that Oscar just happens to be selling over there. Shameless plug. Got your back, man. The scope was the TPO ultra wide we saw earlier, and I was using an Optolong L Ultimate 3 nanometer dual band filter to boost nebula contrast. The advantage of the mini refractor for capturing large swaths of the sky is evident. With not only M8 there on the left being captured in the image, but also the nearby objects like M20, the Trifid Nebula, which is above, and NGC 6559, which is to the left of M8, as well as all the other gas and dust that connects these objects together into a single massive star-forming complex. The wide field of view also allowed me to easily capture the Veil Nebula in one frame, as we can see on the right. A similar perspective is granted to this image on the left of NGC 6888, the Crescent Nebula. The object is normally imaged at a much longer focal length, taking the object out of context. We can see in this shot that the crescent sits within a much larger region of star-forming activity. In addition, the general presence of excited hydrogen gas. There are also a couple of distinct objects in this image, like Sharpless 2-104, which is the more intense red dot on the left side, and also Wolf-Rayet star 133, denoted by the greenish blue streak in the lower middle part of the image. The Crescent Nebula is also lit up by a Wolf-Rayet star, Wolf-Rayet 136, making it and the colored streak essentially the same kind of object. A little bit north of the crescent is IC 1318, shown here on the right. A very large star-forming region that I fondly refer to as the Asian Dragon Nebula. I think I'm the only one that calls it that, though. I really enjoy observing this part of the sky every summer because it is filled with so much fascinating detail. There is always a new feature to discover in this part of the sky. Moving further north along the neck of Cygnus, we get to the well-known North American Nebula, shown on the left. Another beautiful star-forming region, but at this field of view, we can see and gain a better appreciation of how the nebula is related to the clouds of dust and gas that surround it. The Propeller Nebula on the right is one of the many such concentrations of excited hydrogen gas in Cygnus that can be explored with this mini setup. My final sample shots are from objects found in the constellation Cepheus. The first is IC 1396, the Northern Rosette Nebula. This nebula is most famous for the tall pillar of dust and gas that you can see in the 3 o'clock position, called the elephant's trunk. What I find more fascinating than the trunk are the numerous blobs of dark nebulae interconnected by faint streams of dust and cold gas, especially along the bottom of this object. The final object on the right is another star-forming region nearby to IC 1396 called Sharpless 2132, the Lion Nebula. The region contains many very large and hot O-type stars, as well as a couple of Wolf-Rayet stars. The prodigious amount of radiation coming from these massive stars might explain why we can see both red hydrogen emissions and green oxygen emissions. So, after using this mount for a couple of nights, my rating for it is a thumbs up. Once I figured out how to align it properly, tracking and go-tos in EQ mode, at least, were very good for my field of view. I struggled for quite a while trying to figure out star alignment and syncing so that the go-tos worked. It wasn't until I figured out the difference between park position, which applies only to Alt-Az mode, and zero position, which only applies to EQ mode, that I got the mount working properly. That was not documented anywhere in the manual, so heads up on that. It has to do with where your scope is sitting when you turn it on. The computer assumes it's pointing in one direction, but if you park the scope in EQ mode, it thinks you are using it in Alt-Az mode, and it gets completely lost, as was I. I also found the right ascension clutch to be a little wonky. With it backed off enough to move the mount around by hand, the whole joint goes kind of floppy, like it's going to fall apart. So that's kind of weird. And if you over tighten the clutch, there is no way to loosen it by hand. You have to use tools to get it loosened again. So you have to watch that. For my EAA sessions, I was using SharpCap. It's a popular free software for doing this sort of thing, live stacking and that sort. It also has a built-in routine for polar alignment, and it worked very well in conjunction with this mount. So I was quite happy with that. Now, Ioptron also sells a polar alignment camera that you can attach to the mount, but I found it rather expensive at $250 US. So the next steps for me are to practice, practice, practice. Practice setting up the mount in the middle of the day and see how well I can get it to track the sun. I still need to decide whether I'm going to commit to bringing all the additional components to allow for an EQ mode setup and better tracking, or if I will be able to make do with a much simpler Alt-Az mode. Whatever I decide, I am sure that I'm going to have lots of fun with this mount. I'll be sure to let you know how my trip goes in a couple of months. That's it for my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. I don't think you're on.
Check, check. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Roughly, what is the setup time?
Alt-Az mode, it takes longer to set up the tripod, so on the order of a few minutes. EQ mode, because you have to balance everything, it takes probably 10 to 15 minutes.
Hi, Jim. Oh,
Hello.
Hello.
Hot mic.
When I was in Albuquerque, the girls that had Alt-Az mounts for the Eclipse had a lot more field rotation. And that was the big problem when they came to do a time lapse, as
Yes.
opposed to people who had equatorial. Did you look at the GTI or the AM5? The Skywatcher GTI?
I looked at the Skywatcher mounts. They were not wireless control, like go-to dual axis. That was the main thing that attracted me to this mount.
Any other questions?
I have a GTI that can do both tracking and go to in dual axis.
It does do both
Yeah,
axes, yeah.
Yeah, and the EQ mode as well. Anyway, my question was, would it save some weight if you use sandbags instead of the counterweight balance?
In terms of what I had to transport by air, yes.
Yeah.
And I am thinking about how I can manage to do that.
You in situ.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Dave? One here. It's Joe. I have a question for you. I've seen you give some presentations with a setup that uses a lens attached to an astronomy camera. How do you find the performance and costs relative to these small refractors?
That's a good question. So lenses sold commercially for use with DSLRs are made for primarily daytime use. You can get very fast lenses for sure, but they are meant for like low light capture or high speed, like sports and that kind of thing. When you take them out under the stars, many of them do not give you good pinpoint stars. You have a lot of pinched stars and distortions. And they are also not necessarily good with chromatic aberration. They're because of the way the sensor is designed, they all have a color correction filter on them, which tends to produce a camera output that's the same as our eye. You want your pictures to look like what you see, right? So as a result, the lenses aren't made to deal with a broad spectrum of light, like infrared and UV light getting through to the sensor, where the cameras that you buy for astronomy are wide open. They can see UV and IR. And so you can get issues with bloated out of focus stars using lenses meant for DSLRs in that regard. So my experience is that you get much better image quality using many refractors compared to using commercial lenses. Now, that said, I have seen a lot of good results with commercial DSLR lenses, but they are like the cream of the crop, $1,000 or more camera lenses. And where these, we're talking like $400 or $500 for these mini refractors. So that's my experience. You have another question yet? I always use filters. I am the filter guy. If you don't have any, I can hook you up. Yeah, that's a whole other talk on itself. I am living and doing almost all of my observing from in the city. 100%, you need filters. Oh no, I just use a single. No, yeah, this is a one-shot color camera that I was using. So I just have a single filter right between the refractor and the camera.
Okay, we have a question online from Doug Fleming. Would an IR cut filter work?
To allow for the use of a DSLR lens?
I'm not sure that's the extent of his question. Maybe Doug can add to it.
If that is the extent of the question, the answer is yes. You can make commercial camera lenses more usable for astronomy imaging if you put an IR cut filter with it.
Okay,
That's true.
thank you.
All right. Well,
Yeah, but you said thanks. Okay, any
Thanks
other
for that.
questions? No, okay. Well, thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you very much.
So be sure to visit Jim after the meeting tonight. He'll have his set up here to show you all the bits and pieces. We're now moving on to our observation reports. So I'm going to turn over to Jim Sophia first. And Andrea, if you can get yourself ready to come up, that would be great. You just had to climb over a few chairs for those who are online.
So which is the,
This is your advance button,
okay,
or you can tell Chris to advance. He'll do it for you.
okay. Well, hello, folks. So, so this is an image of Jupiter that I shot a couple of weeks ago, showing the moons Io to the right and Europa barely visible to the left. I used a Celestron 8-inch Smith Cassegrain scope with a 2x Telview power mate and the Malicam Skyraider camera. The image was processed in AstroSurface, and the filter that I used was a Beta UV IR cut. Next one, please. Okay, this should be, oh, here we go. So on the same night, over approximately a 1 hour and 20-minute period, I took 24 video captures of Jupiter. I stacked and processed them in AstroSurface, and I aligned the stacked images in IMPPG and created a video file or an animated GIF. Notice how the moon Io approaches the planet on the upper right. Jupiter's day is roughly 10 hours long. And it's interesting to see how quick the planet's rotation really is. Thank you.
Hello. So it was obviously the few clear nights we had last month. We tried to take pictures of planets, and this is obviously Saturn. It was taken mid-month, and it's about a month and a half past opposition. And when opposition happened, I didn't quite get a good picture of Saturn. So I actually went out this evening. It was a very busy night, as you will see. I think it was around the 12th or the 13th of November. So I went out to take a picture of Jupiter, and it was a pretty cold night. But when I went out, Saturn was really high. So I got a few images of Saturn that night. This is with a color planetary camera, the ASI 462. And yes, you do need a UV IR cut filter for that camera. You can see we are past opposition because the shadow of the planet is shining on the rings. That's an indication that we're moving away from that direct lineup with Saturn. All right, do I have to do something here? All right. And I also took an image of Jupiter that night. So the same night, I took a few pictures of Saturn. I waited for Jupiter to rise. And I had two planets this time. And this was the first time that I got Europa as well. So I have Io and Europa. And the only interesting thing that I noticed from this image of Jupiter was can you see in the northern equatorial band, there are these two black dots. They look like little eyeballs. There's some kind of storm, and I thought perhaps this was just some kind of goofy thing that showed up on my images. But the same night, I noticed that there was a fellow from somewhere else in Canada, and he posted an image with the same two little dots. So some kind of storm was happening that night, and then the dots disappeared in the days to come. But let's see. Oh, something else happened that night, but we'll come back to that night in November. This is an image done with a mini refractor. As it's not quite as mini as some of Jim's, but it's a 250 millimeter red cat refractor. And so it's very wide field. And this image came up because I was looking for a broadband image. It was shot with a color camera. It's the ASI 2600, which has a built-in UV IR cut filter, but there's no other kind of filter that you want to use with a dark nebula because it's a broadband target. So you need a dark sky and you don't want any kind of oxygen or hydrogen or dual band filter. So this is a part of the sky in Cepheus. This I guess they already showed the designation. This nebula is called the Seahorse Nebula. It's Barnard 150. It's huge. It's a huge nebula. And it began when I was looking for a framing of an object near the Fireworks Galaxy, which is a little galaxy you see there. And you can see the red along the left-hand side is part of the Bat and Squid Nebula in Cepheus. This was actually probably around 20 hours of 3-minute exposures. I had it set up in my backyard. I just kept running it every night because I was dealing with a problem with another telescope. So I ended up with about 20 hours of exposure on this nebula. And for those of you who do processing with Adam Block's, his online program, I followed his tutorial. He finally did a tutorial on dark nebula because they're tricky to process. So back to the night of November, yeah, there it is, November 12th. While I was taking pictures of Jupiter and Saturn, I got an alert, KP5 alert. And I thought, oh no, because usually when you get the alert, the KP index represents the last 3 hours. So it usually means we're nearing the end of the aurora. But so I ran up the street and I got a new camera that has this really neat feature that when I run a time lapse, it automatically creates a video. So this was a single image, and then the next, I'm going to play you, it's a little video. The little burst of aurora didn't last long. It was at the tail end, and so I repeated it 3 times. I don't want to go forward. I want to, there we go. And there was supposed to be dramatic music, but it's not playing. But that's okay. So that was the little aurora of November 12th. Thank you.
Tony?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tony. Good to see you a little bit. For my first observation report, I thought I would stick to Oscar's observing challenges. So this first one is M72. This is in Aquarius, and it's kind of low in the sky. We're looking over the highway, straight over Nepean, so we've got a lot of light pollution, and I think my tracking was a little bit off. But still, it's a globular cluster. This represents about 2 hours of exposure time. Fun fact about M72 is that it's one of the most distant globular clusters in the Messier catalog at about 55,000 light years away, which is, for context, about twice the distance to the galactic core. So it's almost right on the other side. So that is M72. So you can kind of see a little bit of the brighter stars there. And the next challenge was NGC 7331, which is this galaxy in Pegasus. This one is about 40 million light years away. And this picture represents about 4 hours of exposure. These are all taken with a 6-inch Newtonian telescope and the ASI 183 color camera. So you can kind of see towards the right, just to the right of this galaxy, there are 4 little galaxies, and together these are called the Deerlick group. I tried to look up where that name comes from, and it was a little bit uncertain. Anyway, the 4 little galaxies are collectively called the Fleas. And the fun fact about this galaxy is that the core is counter-rotating. So it rotates the opposite way to the rest of the disk. Let's see. And the final deep space challenge was NGC 1275, which is a little bit hard to see here, but right in the very center, there is a fuzzy blob, and that one is Galaxy NGC 1275 or Perseus A. It's actually in the center of the galaxy cluster, the Perseus galaxy cluster, which is made up of thousands of galaxies. And if you look on the image here, you can start to make out a few other fuzzy blobs all over the place. And the fun test is to count how many you think you can see. So I got the chart out and I started counting, and I think there are about 50 galaxies visible, which is pretty cool. And this cluster is about 250 million light years away, so pretty far. And then as a final bonus, because it's Orion season, I pointed it towards M42, and this is about, I think, 5 hours again, M42. These images are all taken from our home, which is not far from Tunney's pasture. So we're dealing with quite a lot of light pollution, but M42 is so bright that it still is quite a rewarding target to get some nice detail. So, thanks, that's it.
Well, I hope you're not getting too tired of seeing Jupiter, but it's been a great month just after the opposition. So I think everybody's been taking some good pictures of Jupiter. I was also very interested to try out one of the telescopes from the Ted Bean Loan Library. This was telescope T9. It's an 8-inch Celestron Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. And I found its optics were really, really good. So after using it for a few months, I've decided to buy one of my own. Anyway, so T9 is now going to be going back into the loan library. If anybody's interested in taking it out, I strongly recommend it. So these pictures were taken using a 3x Barlow and ASI 178 color camera. I've been working on the processing. I'm hoping to give a talk sometime next year about the processing of planetary pictures. But this was a lovely night of November 20th. I went out to FLO, and I'd noticed before I went out that Io was going to be transiting across the planet and its shadow. So I made sure that I was aiming at that at the right time. So I was quite interested to see that not only I could see Io before it went onto the disk, and then I could follow it even on the live view on my computer as Io was moving across. You could still see that bright spot as well as the shadow coming through. And some of the details in the clouds I'm seeing, they're actually smaller than the moon. So quite a beautiful night for seeing and transparency. Next one. Oh, sorry. Sorry. That's probably from the processing. When you're sharpening these images, they kind of boost the differences between the dark areas and the light areas. So you will get some halos forming, and that's just an artifact from the processing. Now, this was the same night that Andrea was taking pictures. This is the 12th of November. And I found that the seeing was a little bit more variable that night. And you can see that this sequence of images, there's quite a difference in the amount of features that you can see on them. There's a couple of moments which are very nice, and then other moments where it was quite blurry. Next one. Now, this was back on the 20th again, a beautiful sharp night. It wasn't so dark at FLO because the moon was first quarter, and so it was brightly lighting up the scene. So it was okay for Saturn, the moon, and Jupiter, but I had to wait for the moon to go down before I could see any of the deep sky objects. This is again with the Schmidt-Cassegrain, 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain, and I pieced together a panorama along the terminator, so you can see the lovely detail in all the craters. And then the next one is a little bit farther across, the Sea of Serenity and the Sea of Tranquility. I love this area of the moon because you can see 3 of the Apollo landing sites. Apollo 11, of course, in the Sea of Tranquility, over on the left-hand side. Apollo 15 up at the top of the image beside the Sea of Serenity. And on the original image, if you really zoom in on it, you can actually see the Hadley Rill that the astronauts were exploring in that area. And then down in the bottom, on the other side of the Sea of Serenity, is the Apollo 17, the last Apollo mission to land on the moon. So that's again from November 20th. And that's all for me. Thank you.
So hopefully you're not tired of hearing my voice. So there's been a lot of talk in magazines and online the last couple of years, talking about the fact that we are currently in our sun's peak for activity. That's a cycle that happens every 11 years. This got me to thinking on whether or not I could corroborate this statement using my own solar images. I've collected quite a few over the last little while. This image is a mosaic of all my calcium 2K full disk images from the past 6 years. In the upper left of the mosaic are all the images that I took from 2018 to 2020. You can see pretty clearly that there was very little, if any, activity going on during that time. Then, oddly, from May 2020 to April 2022, I have no records of collecting any solar images at all. It is almost as if there was something else going on at that time that was keeping me busy. I wonder what that could have been. Anyway, starting in April of 2022, we can see that there is a large increase in activity, both in the form of sunspots and bright plages. There seems to have been a peak in this activity around December 2022 to February 2023, and then again around late May through July of this year. Since then, there has continued to be lots of bright plages as visible in the calcium K band, but not a lot of large sunspots. So does that mean that we are now coming down the other side of the maximum? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. This image further illustrates the difference in solar activity between during the minimum and during the maximum, this time in hydrogen alpha light. The image on the right was captured mid-June 2020 and shows pretty much zero surface activity. The image on the right is from this past Saturday and clearly has numerous sunspots, shown here reversed, so the bright spots are the sunspots, numerous filaments and flaring regions that show up as dark on the disk. Interestingly, the prominence activity in these two images is roughly the same. I'm not sure how to explain that. You will be able to get a closer look at this image on the right, as well as many more of my solar images in my next talk, Anatomy of a Sunspot, coming in the new year. The next three images were all captured during an electronically assisted astronomy session I had a week ago today. The images are all captured with, surprise, surprise, a mini refractor. I made use again of the TPO ultra-wide scope, this time with my monochrome DS432 camera made by Melancam and an Optolong 3 nanometer H alpha filter. The images were captured from my backyard in the Alta Vista area, where the light pollution is heavy duty, along with an almost full moon high in the sky. This first image from the night is of IC 1805, the Heart Nebula, along with the smaller and brighter IC 1795 Fishhead Nebula. This is a spectacular star-forming region in the constellation Cassiopeia and is estimated to be about 7,500 light years away. I was very happy with the view I was able to achieve, as it highlighted not only the nebula itself, but also the large, dark molecular cloud within which it has formed. This image, by the way, is a stack of 15 60-second sub-exposures, so a total exposure of 15 minutes. This next image is of the central part of the constellation Auriga, which is very well placed in the night sky this time of year. The region is dominated by IC 405, the Flaming Star Nebula, on the left, and IC 410 with its tadpoles at the top. These are both star-forming regions. The area has been forming stars for a long time, as it is littered with open clusters such as M38, the starfish cluster that we can see in the lower right. The long streamers of faint emission nebulae, visible all over the image, also suggest a long history of nebulae forming, new stars being born, and then those stars blowing their parent nebulas apart. The two small, brighter spots on the right side, by the way, are IC 417, the Spider Nebula, that's the larger one on the left, and NGC 1931, the Fly Nebula. The region is estimated to be about 1,500 light years away. I selected my last image in the theme of the season. It is NGC 2264, the Christmas Tree Cluster. Through binoculars, an observer will see only the stars of this cluster, but with a narrow H alpha filter and a camera, we can see that the cluster sits within a massive cloud of excited hydrogen gas. This emission nebula is sometimes referred to as the Fox Fur Nebula. This emission nebula seems to be bounded on all sides by cold, dark gas and dust, a feature that would otherwise be hard to see if not for the fact that I was using a mini refractor. Thank you. Thank you. I do not have any investments in mini refractor companies, by the way. If you can't quite make out the Christmas tree, I will point it out for you. Happy holidays, everyone, and clear skies. See you in the new year.
Well, it's nice to see real people again. I imaged this in May of this year, and there was forest fires burning all over North America. And the image was absolutely red through the dust. So I imaged it again this month, and it turned out pretty good. If you look at it, it reminds me of some kind of sea creature, like a nautilus or something, but it's actually a pretty nice spiral galaxy. I'm also fascinated by the star right above it, extremely bright, and the spikes caused by my veins on my telescope really make it stand out. Next image, please.
This is M74, the Phantom. This was the last image. This was the last object when I did my Messier list. It's called the Phantom for a good reason. It was really hard to find. Even though I was looking right at it, I just couldn't see it. It's a large spiral, about 30 million light years away. And if you have a big enough telescope, it's easy to see. Next. I've imaged the Horsehead before, but this is the deepest image I've ever taken of the Horsehead. So it's the best image I've ever taken of it. It's to the left of the image, just a little bit, is the bottom star in Orion's belt, or the East Star, if you prefer. And it makes getting rid of gradients in this image really hard because it's just barely out of the frame. The nebula is dust, which is blocking the glow from the red hydrogen alpha gases glowing behind it, which is being excited by all the stars, probably the Elnick stars. And the blue at the bottom is NGC 2023, and it's a reflection nebula, and it's just starlight being bounced back by the dust in the nebula, just the same way our sky looks blue because of the blue light being reflected off the sky, the dust in our own sky. Now this particular object is not visible to the naked eye because we don't see hydrogen alpha gas. We don't see glowing red very well in the dark. But this particular part of the sky is about 40 degrees up in the sky right now at 1 o'clock in the morning. And for the 2 hours before that, it's also excellent. You really need to drag your telescope up or just a pair of binoculars and take a look at it. It's got the Orion Nebula. It's got the belt stars. It's just a fascinating part of the sky to look at, winter sky. Fantastic, do that. By the way, all these fabulous images of the planets I've been seeing tonight. I walked out yesterday and, Jupiter looked like it was straight overhead. I've never seen that before. Fabulous viewing of the planets also. Anyway, thank you very much.
Big green one, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. You've heard a number of people commenting on the quality of the November sky. And I see from the images that were shown tonight that those of you that did get out and do some stargazing, we're all on the same few nights. Unfortunately, November has been not a great month for clear skies, and those skies that were clear generally had a moon in them. You can blame me for part of that because I just recently picked up an ASI 2600 monochrome camera, and I was dying to test it. And November the 20th, as you saw in Richard's image, was one of the few clear nights that I've had since I purchased it, where I got a chance to shake it down. So the moon was up, not much else that I wanted to test it on. This was the first light with that camera. And so I concentrated on the moon. This is not one of my images. This is a representation from virtual moon atlas there, just to show you the phase and some of the major features, some of the major mare on it. So on that night, this grid is an overlay. The central line going down that is dead center. This was 7.65 days after the last new moon, so lunation of 7.65 days. This is one of my favorite areas of the moon because it is so rich in detail that you can spend the whole evening watching the moon. So if you've got a telescope, this is one of the things I really love about the moon. I mean, there's nothing we can do about the moon; it's there. So if you've got the equipment, you might as well enjoy it, and I think you can. It's also undoubtedly the single most beautiful object to see with the naked eye, or not with the naked eye, but without a camera, just using your telescope. There's no other object in the sky that will reveal as much otherworldly detail to the eye than the moon. I mean, you've seen some beautiful photographs here tonight. These objects, the nebulas and such that you're seeing, take a lot of time and effort to pull out. You're hearing 10 hours of exposure, 20 hours exposure. And these cameras these days are insanely sensitive, like they're 80, 90% quantum efficient. Yes? Oh, sorry, thank you. So unlike those images, the moon is easily observable. If you've got a half decent scope, you can spend all sorts of time exploring the features on the moon. And the nice thing about the moon is it's always changing. It's never quite the same twice, really, because we've got phases moving. The moon is exhibiting phases from new moon to full moon, and the shadow play, especially along the terminator, is fascinating, especially in a region like this where as you'll see in a moment, there's just a wealth of detail. So I played with the camera, and all of these images were taken with an 11-inch Edge HD at f10. And the night was in my part of the world was not bad. The seeing was okay. It was variable. Some portions of the evening were better than others there, but what I'm just fascinated with is the terminator region. This is where basically, in this case with the moon in its waxing phase, what you're seeing at the terminator is sunrise on those particular landforms, and they cast really deep shadows, as you can see. Do I have a laser on? Oh, I do have a laser on this. There we go. So you can see in the floors of some of these craters there, tremendous shadow detail, and it really makes it pop. It really gives it a three-dimensional sense, as you'll see in a few minutes there. So given the night was actually better than I thought it would be, I managed to get a number of high resolution views of various images or various areas on the moon, including this. This is the Alpine Valley, and this is something I've been chasing for a while because I've always wanted to try to observe the little cleft in the middle of it. And I didn't think this was a night for it there because the seeing just wasn't stable enough. As it turned out, you can see, wrong one. Can I go back? Yeah. Upper left. Oh, there we go. Okay, playing with the controls. Sorry. There we go. So you can see if you look closely, that very thin line running down the middle. As I say, this wasn't the greatest seeing, and I was surprised that I could get this, but that rill within the valley is only 500 to 1,000 meters in width. So it's a tiny object. It stretches long enough. It stretches for most of the length of the Alpine Valley, but you can only see it at certain angles of the sun when the moon is in a certain position there. So you need that and clear, stable skies to see it, which explains why I've never actually seen it over the many years that I've observed the moon. The other area that I was interested in was, and Richard also mentioned this already, was the Apollo 15 landing site. Again, I didn't expect to see anything spectacular here because the seeing was a little fuzzy. But as it turned out, there's the landing site, and you can see the shadow of Hadley's Rill there. When the astronauts explored this back in 71, they actually drove up to the edge of this valley. It's a fairly deep little valley, and I think one of them wound up throwing a stone into it or something like that. I know I would have done that. I wouldn't have been able to resist that. But they actually drove up to it, and there's some fascinating pictures of the astronauts with their lunar rover buggy parked right on the edge of it, and they're sort of looking into that valley. So very cool feature. So it was an interesting night for doing this kind of business. Oops, sorry, wrong button again. And I thought I'd show you some more just close-up views, but I thought, well, I've got the material here, so I thought I'd take you to a flight to the moon tonight. So our flight path tonight, buckle your seatbelts, please, will carry us over the lunar terminator. Because as Richard mentioned, the detail there is fabulous, and I've got a fairly close view of it here. I stitched together a mosaic made of several images along the flight path using the 11-inch and the new 2600 camera, and thought I'd give you a tour. So here we go. Now have a look at some of the craters, especially near the terminator there. The moon has no atmosphere, as you know, and so shadows tend to be really crisp and sharp, and they extend for a long time. As you look further up the image there, you're looking at lower and lower sun angles on that particular terrain, so the shadows get insanely long. And you can see that you can actually make out the shape of the mountains on the rim by the shadows they cast. I love this area there. I mean, it shows you just how battered the moon has been over the eons. Alphonsus and Ptolemaeus there. That crater, just to give you a sense of scale, I believe is about 120 kilometers across. And then moving from the southern highlands in towards the middle of the disk of the moon, here we can see the Apennine mountain range there with some of the shadows it's casting. The Apollo 15 landing site is down that way. I love this view. This was one of the really sharp moments of the seeing that I had, and it was nice because it was the Alpine Valley there. You can see again the shadows cast by the mountains. And just Mare Frigatoris there, and basically we're coming up to the northern polar region of the moon. So this, as I say, this is what I love about the moon there. You can see a lot of this detail. You don't have to do imaging to do this. So if you've got a telescope that's half decent and an eyepiece, I know Sylvie had some eyepieces for sale. There's another plug for you. I don't get a commission on this, so. But the moon reveals itself. And as I say, it's fascinating to watch it even from night to night, even if you're looking at the same area, because the shadow play is amazing. You'll see things one night that are totally invisible the night before, but you'll see them with your eyes, and you don't need a camera to do it. So the Terminator is the thing to look at, not Arnold, but the Terminator is the area that you want to look at. But Christmas is coming, right? Christmas is coming. There'll probably be some Astro toys under the trees if you've been good boys and girls. The full moon happens to be on Boxing Day, and good time to test some Astro gear as well, because even when the moon is full, there's no Terminator on it, and you still see a wide variety in the terrain, in the light levels of the Mare regions versus the highland heavily cratered regions. And if you want to see something, let your imagination go wild. This is something I showed a few years ago. See if you can spot that, and the best time to spot this is on a full moon. See if you can spot the lunar deer. I don't know if you can or not. Some people that have been around for a few years, I showed this a few years ago, will know where it is, but see if you can spot the lunar deer. And if you can't, this area is where to look at. Can you see the deer? If your imagination still isn't doing it for you, I've enhanced the deer a little bit. And there's the deer. And being that this is December the 26th, this is the day after Christmas, you know, Rudolph needs a rest, so I take it that's his hangout after Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Clear skies, and we'll catch you in the new year.
All right, good evening. I've only got one image to show, and it was not taken with the mini refractor before anyone asks. So this is the Tulip Nebula, which is cataloged as SH or Sharpless 2-101, a very fancy designation. It's an H2 region. It's an emission nebula in Cygnus. It was cataloged by Stuart Sharpless in 1959. It's about 6,000 light years away, and it's in very close proximity to black hole Cygnus X1. It's only about 15 arc minutes away, and it did get it in this image. I think it's right there. It's in that area. And Cygnus X1 is a major X-ray source in our galaxy. So this particular image is about 4 hours exposure, or 83-minute exposures, taken way back in September 5th. The skies haven't been great, so I haven't been out very much. I used a ZWO ASI 2400 MC Pro and my 11-inch Edge HD Schmidt-Cassegrain scope. If I was a better businessman, I would have featured one of the images that I took with my 533 MC Pro or with my S-Big STC7, but alas I didn't. But if anyone wants to check those out after, please come by. But yeah, that's it for me this month. Thank you.
And Oscar every month pulls together our observing challenges. So thank you, Oscar, for doing that. These are the challenges from last month. And here is our challenges for this month. Our beginner challenges Messier 103, an open cluster in Cassiopeia. All these will be in AstroNotes, so I'm going to move fairly quickly through here, but the AstroNotes will refresh you on these. Our intermediate challenge is NGC 7662, known as the Blue Snowball. It's a planetary nebula in Andromeda. Our deep sky advanced challenge is Mafia 1, elliptical galaxy in Cassiopeia. And our lunar challenge is Crater Steinheil, a crater in the southeastern highlands of the moon. So there's your challenge for this month. Summary of all the challenges. So we are doing a part of our agreement with the Canadian Aviation Space Museum is that we assist them with their public outreach. I do have some volunteers already. Thank you very much for that. But I'd love to have some more volunteers to assist us on Friday, December the 29th, Saturday, December the 30th, and Friday, January the 5th. This is a daytime solar event. So if you have either a solar scope or a telescope with a solar filter, or even if you just want to come out and support us, that would be awesome. If you can send me an email, president@ottawa.rasc.ca, if you could help out, that would be great. Please let me know which days you are available. Also, please let me know if you are bilingual. Right now I have one person who's bilingual, not on 2 days, but I need particularly on January 5th, it'd be nice to have somebody who's bilingual. So just reach out to me. I'd really appreciate it. So Estelle's pick of the month, Estelle is our book librarian here, is Einstein's Monsters. There we go. And the library is behind the stage here, so please come back at the end of the meeting tonight and take a look for that. Our private observatory out near Elmont, the Fred Lawson Observatory, is available to all members, and I encourage you to use this valuable resource. We have private flow star parties, members only. Our next one is December the 9th, as we have a waning crescent moon. Hopefully we have clear skies for that. You can see our hit rate this year is about 50%. So let's get another green check mark on December 9th. Moving forward to next year, Got many more opportunities. These are the dates. All these will be in Astronotes as well. Post-meeting entertainment. The suggestion has been that we go to Liam McGuire's on the corner of Saint Laurent at Innis and join us for some drinks afterwards. Here are some of the folks that support our club. And welcome Anne Quivalent. Sorry, I may not have pronounced your name correctly there, Anne. And we'll have coffee and conversation set up after the meeting tonight out in the lobby. We had 78 here in the audience, plus we had a bunch online as well. So thank you to everybody who was our speakers tonight. Next meeting is Friday, January the 5th, both here and online. And hopefully the weather cooperates as well at 7:30 p.m. And we're going to close the Zoom webinar now. There is no, there's some stuff up here. There's a table labeled free stuff. Please help yourselves. Otherwise, the other stuff is not free, particularly Oscar's camera. Okay. But feel free to go negotiate with him. We're now going to close the Zoom webinar and we're going to turn up the lights. And thank you for coming out tonight, and we'll see you next month. Clear skies.